welcome to my channel, Willa Candy's channel. If you're new here, welcome. It's nice to meet you. And on this channel, I eat food. I read out of the Holy Scripture like I'm about to do right now. And I share stories. I'm going to share episode 14 of Tar Mama. And this episode is called Little Bit Children. And I'll also be sharing a story at the end, a story that I also had, came up with towards the end. It's going to be a viewer's discretion as advised type of story, by the way. But how's everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing hope everyone is doing great today on this beautiful, lovely Wednesday, June 17th. I just looked at the calendar. And I hope everyone is staying safe, having a great day at work. Loving one another, treating everyone with respect, and I'm about to get into the reading. I'm going to be reading some in Job. Job chapter 29 and Job chapter 30. Alright, chapter 29. Moreover, Job continued his parable and said, "Oh, that I were as in months past, as in the days when God preserved me, when his candle shined upon my head, and when by his light I walked it through darkness, as I was in the days of my youth, when the secret of God was upon my tabernacle, when the Almighty was yet with me, when my children were about me, when I washed it my steps with butter, and the rock poured me out rivers of oil. When I went out to the gate through the city, when I prepared my seat in the street, the young men saw me and hid themselves, and the aged arose and stood up. The princes refrained talking and laid their hand on their mouth. The nobles held their peace, and their tongue cleaved to the roof of their mouth. When the ear heard me, then it blessed me. And when the eyes saw me, it gave witness to me. Because I delivered the poor, that child, or forgive me, I read it wrong. Because I delivered the poor that cried, and the fatherless, and him that had none to help him. When the blessing of him that was ready to perish came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My judgment was as a robe and a diadem. I was eyes to the blind, and feet was I to the lame. I was a father to the poor, and the cause which I knew not I searched out. And I brake the jaws of the wicked, and plucked the spoil out of his teeth. Then I said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. My root was spread out by the waters, and the dew lay all night upon my branch. My glory was fresh in me, and my bow was renewed in my hand. And to me men gave ear, and waited, and kept silence at my counsel. After my words they spake not again, and my speech dropped it upon them, and they waited for me as for the rain, and they opened their mouth wide as for the latter rain. If I laughed on them, they believed it not, and the light of my countenance they cast not down. I chose out their way, and sat chief, and dwelt as a king in the army, as one that comforted the mourners. Chapter 30. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. Yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, and caves of the earth, and in the rocks, among the bushes. They brayed. Under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, children of basemen. They were valour than the earth. And now and now am I their song, I am their byword. They abhor me, they flee far from me, and spare not to spit in my face. Because he hath loosed my cord, and afflicted me, they have also let loose the bridle before me. Upon my right hand rise the youth, they push away my feet, and they raise up against me the ways of their destruction. They mar my path, they set forward my calamity, they have no helper. They came upon me as a wide breaking in of waters, and the desolation they rode themselves upon me. Terrors are turned upon me, they pursue my soul as the wind, and my welfare passeth away as a cloud. And now my soul is poured out upon me. The days of affliction have taken hold upon me. My bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. By the great force of my disease is my garment changed. It bindeth me about as the collar of my coat. He hath cast me into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. I cry unto thee, and that you dost not hear me. I stand up, and that you regardest me not, Lord forgive me. That you art become cruel to me with thy strong hand. That you opposeth thyself against me. That you liftest me up to the wind. That you causest me to ride upon it, and dissolvest my substance. For I know that you wilt bring me to death, into the house appointed for all living. Howbeit he will not stretch out his hand to the grave, though they cry in his destruction. Did not I weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? When I looked for good, then evil came up unto me. And when I waited for light, there came darkness. My bowels boiled and rested not. The days of affliction have prevented me. I went mourning without the sun. I stood up and I cried in the congregation. I am a brother to dragons and a companion to owls. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. My heart also is turned to mourning, and my organ into the voice of them that weep. Word of the day. Looks beautiful out here. The sun is shining, the birds flying around, cars flying past, as usual. This episode 14 of Tar Mama. Tar Mama might be done around the 20-something episode, and I'll get back to doing regular videos, either than eating, rag squeezing, and sharing stories of my own. But I'm going to share a story towards the end after this episode of God's Will. But on this episode, Alexis was heading to work. And Alexis either takes the bus to, the city bus to work, or either gets his friend Ricochet to take him. This time, he was in the mood to take the city bus, which he shouldn't have done. And the reason why I say that he shouldn't have took the city bus is because once he had gotten up there, the bus was already crowded. And there was this older woman with glasses. Older woman named Tessa Clay. She was on the bus and she was fussing already with like a few people because the whole bus was just crowded. Like, the seats was filled up with people, and some folks was standing up. Majority of the folks was standing up that was on the bus, and everybody else, like, seats were crowded, like 3 or 4 people to a seat. And when Alexis got up there, like, dang, I should have just got Ricochet to took me. But he went on ahead and took the bus because Ricochet had got to where he needed to go to on his own car. But soon Alexis is going to get a car, though. But not in this episode. He had to take the bus because he decided to take the bus, which was the wrong decision. Once he had got up there, he messed around and ended up bumping into that same older woman. And then she pushed him back like, "Watch where you going, you silly young fool." That's what the older woman had told him. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Lady, ma'am. I'm really sorry. I'm about to go to the back and stand." Alexis, of course, had manners towards the lady. He may not have may not have much manners towards Shelvanya's El Salvadorian grandmother. And if you haven't seen the episode, I suggest you should, check that one out in one of my other videos. Yeah, well, he went to the back, and the bus was still crowded. And there was this dude. I'll say this dude is a straight up pervert. I'm going to just straight say. A pervert, a.k.a. Peeper Tom, a.k.a. he's also is a pickpocketer too. Like, just a low down dirty petty thief who is also a pervert and a Peeper Tom. And what he had made sure to make his way up near the front, right behind Tessa Clay, the older woman with the glasses, and she had her purse. He not only had dipped his hand in her purse, but he took his other hand and touched her back door, if you know what I mean. And once he had did that, Tessa, she turned it around. The man had moved out of the way quickly, so she wouldn't have seen his face. The first person who she laid eyes on was Alexis. She had went straight to Alexis and kapaya. Alexis fell back in the bus like, what was that for? What is wrong with you, old woman? And she said, you don't feel on me with your fresh self. I'm going to get my grandchildren to kick your ass. Like she was just cussing him out. This old woman had a hard right hook on her. Like she kapaya Alexis right in the face. And Alexis fell back on his back. So like, oh lady, you can't be just going around hitting on people. And I didn't touch you. He said, yes you did. You big old pervert. I'm going to get my grandchildren to kick your behind. And yes, she had grandkids. But they not like small as what you think they are. They're not little children. Her grandchildren, I'll say her grandchildren is young. They are, adolescents or, like young people, teenagers. But they look like older for their age. Like they look like they is like about the same height as Alexis and everything. They look like grown people. And of course, these was some boys. They were like teenage boys who looked like they were around Alexis' age. And these teenage boys was also troubled. They listened to their grandmother, but they stayed in trouble in the streets, crimes. Almost about similar to what Alexis and his friends did when they was, children. But these kids was like 2 times worse than them. And once Tessa Clay had got back and told her grandkids what had happened, told how the man looked at and everything, yeah, that's when Alexis, I was, kind of thinking about. That's when Alexis should have had realized that he was in danger, because he was. These grandchildren did not play about their grandmother. She went back and told him that some perverted guy not only had dipped his hand in her purse, but he had touched her, and these touched her inappropriately. These grandchildren was out looking for him. They already found out how Alexis looked and everything, and it was easy for them to find him. When he had got off of work, he also should have got Ricochet to take her back home. He did not do that. Once he had got off of work, and he decided not to take the bus because the bus also be crowded at nighttime. He just decided to walk. And where him and Shelvania had lived at, it was a little far from where he had walked it, but he did not mind walking, in the neighborhood of Garrison. And but as he was walking, he did not know that there was like 4 other people following behind him. And those 4 other people was Tessa Clay's grandchildren. And one of the grandchildren had yelled out, "Hey, Pop! Hey, Pocky!" And once Alexis turned around, and then he had seen the children that stood right where he was. That's when the children started charging after him, the teenage boys. And then Alexis was like, oh shit, and then he took off running himself, trying to get away. And they chased Alexis for hours. Like they chased him non-stop, as if, like how the prehistoric humans was way back in the days when the world was, a lot more different now. The prehistoric humans, way back then, they had a lot more energy in them than now. Like they can run more faster, they can hunt you down more faster. Some would even be able to tear an animal apart. Viewers' discretion is advised. But these grandchildren was running just like that. They was on Alexis' tail like right on rice. And Alexis had ended up, getting away from them. He had ended up getting away from them and had jumped into like one of them, silver looking trash cans, them old-fashioned trash cans with the silver top on top. The green fuzzy monster looking thing that, used to sit in that trash can on Sesame Street. Them type of trash cans. Well, Alexis had jumped into that trash can, put the lid on top, because, Alexis was kind of short anyway. He jumped inside of the trash can, put the lid on the top, and had hid out from those grandchildren of that woman. And, they were looking around, you could hear their voices like, you check over there, I'll check over here. And they was looking all around. And Alexis was like, phew, man, I'm glad that I had gotten away. But once that lid had lifted off, Alexis was like, oh, please don't hurt me. He was scared, but thankfully it was not one of the teenagers. It was just some homeless guy. They were like, "Hey man, you don't look like a sandwich." He lifted the lid up. And Alexis, he had made it out of the trash can, the tin can. He said, "If you see like 4 boys looking for me, please tell them that you haven't seen me. If they ask you about me, I gotta get home. I gotta get to my apartment." And that's what Alexis did. He had made it home. He rushed it inside, put the locks on the door, wiggling. Shelvania was in the kitchen cooking. You're like, "What in the world is wrong with you?" And then he was like, "Listen, so somebody is looking for me. There's like 4 boys that chased me down. I know it took me a long time to make it home. I was not around ricocheting them. He was just out of breath and, just nervous and scared and out of breath, and was just letting Shelvania know, like, look, I gotta hide, I gotta keep the lights off." She said, "Whoever it is, you don't have to worry about them coming here, because I'm not gonna open up my door." That's what Shelvania has said. Well, those boys, they had ended up making it into that apartment building, like the entire building with all the apartments in it. And they checked at almost every single apartment door, because it was a lot of apartment buildings, like different floors. And Alexis and them was like on the 10th floor. They was on the 10th floor level, so that was a little high. But them little boys had made it up there, through the stairs. They did not take the elevator. They took the stairs, because that's just how fast and how full of energy they was. And they would check in every apartment door, just knocking. Person open up the door, like, "We looking for a punk that, touched our grandmother inappropriately." They was just hitting her hands, like, "No, wrong door." And then the door closed in their face. They checked at every single apartment till they ended up making it to Shelvania's apartment door. Shelvania was the one who had opened it, and she'll like, "May I help you?" And then he'll like, and then one of them like, "Hello, man. We just looking around for a guy who had assaulted our grandmother." And they'll like, a guy who had assaulted your grandmother? Like, how does he look? Can you tell me how he look? Like, because I'm trying to keep a lookout. If he assaulted your grandmother, then he could be around here. Shelvania knew that those were the boys that were looking for Alexis. And they were like, "Well, he's about the same height as us, and he was wearing like a green shirt. Alexis had on like a dark green shirt, a hat, regular pants and stuff. He was just getting off of work." And then he said he had like a lunchbox on him. And then Shelvania like, "I don't know." And then he said he's kind of brown skin, caramel light skin. And Shelvania like, "No, I've never seen anyone like that around here. But I hope you find him, though, because ain't nobody deserve to get assaulted like that. I hope you find him and beat his behind." That's what Shelvania had said. "All right, okay, thank you, man. Have a great night." The boys left. Shelvania shut the door. And then she'll like, "Okay, the coast is clear. You can come out, Alexis." Alexis was coming out of the closet with a big old pan on top of his head, as if he was using it as a protection or as a helmet or something. He was looking around like, "You sure the coast is clear?" And she'll like, "Yeah, I already told him that you wasn't here. You could get out of the closet now." And that basically is the end of this episode called Little Big Children. The reason why I call it Little Big Children, because Tessa Clay's grandchildren was little big children. They was little in age, but they was big for their size. And before I end this video officially, I'm gonna be sharing a short story called Flames of Fire. And it's gonna be about a 15-year-old boy. 15-year-old boy's name is Ralston Tarrant. His name is spelled Ralston. And this boy, he has a little sister. He has like one little sister, and her name is Nina Tarrant. And with Ralston, something horrible happened to him when he was small. Something horrible happened to him. Viewers' discretion is advised. It has to do with an uncle of his, and his uncle is his Uncle Quinlan. His Uncle Quinlan was a homosexual man. He was a homosexual man, but he was a closeted homosexual. Try to keep it, secret, but some people could tell. And he did something horrible to to Ralston when he was a child. And Ralston never recovered from that. He never recovered from that. And Quinlan, he didn't care, what Ralston, had, if Ralston would have had told, his sister if he would have told his sister, his sister, Quinlan's sister, Ralston and Nina's mother, Quinlan would not have told Ralston Quinlan would not have cared if Ralston had told his sister on him. Like, he did not care if Ralston would have had spit out what had happened to him. But Ralston never told it. Ralston kept it inside of him. And him doing that had did a lot of damage inside of himself. It messed it up his mind, if you know what I mean. And sorry for the stuttering, trying to think about the story, trying to recreate it because I ain't got it written down or nothing. I can say is that Ralston's mind has started to turn to just pure darkness and wickedness, and it's just plain out downright nasty, nasty. And at 15, he became, the villain himself. He was still the victim, but he became the villain, if you know what I mean. And he developed a he would develop a friendship with this other guy at his school, having a friendship with this boy named Seymour. And I'm going to say Seymour's mind was just as messed up as Ralston's mind. But once the two of them had got together, they both became, great friends with each other. And Seymour, he also had a wicked sense of humor. He stayed getting in trouble in class and everything, just that one kid who just could not stay out of trouble. He had a habit of, being a thief, stealing off of the teacher's desk and everything. He just did stuff like that to get sent out of the classroom or suspended, from school or anything like that. He didn't get into any fights. He just was a mischievous type of kid who Ralston liked to hang around. And he also had a drinking problem at a young age. I'm gonna say Ralston is around 15 years of age, and so is Seymour. And also, Ralston calls him the nickname Snake as well, right along with a few other people who knows Seymour personally. Seymour had got Ralston into drinking just like him. He already was drinking, heavily, and he had got Ralston into drinking. And once Ralston had drank it, his messed up mind, what he was thinking in his mind right along with that was a bad combination. And it had got him into doing things that he had no business doing. I'm going to just say him and Seymour was doing some really adult things, things that you just didn't have no business doing. And it's along with playing fire, literally playing with fire, just catching things on fire. Now you can see the hint behind why I named the story Flames of Fire. But they liked to catch things on fire too, just liked to watch things burn. But while Ralston was watching things burn, say he'd just be burning a pile of sticks, burning trash or anything like that, or even setting some of his old clothes that he didn't want on fire, he would just stand there and just watch the flames burn. And as he looking through them flames, he can, see his own self getting assaulted by his uncle Quinlan, who at the time, around this time, the year is 1991. The year is 1991, and Quinlan is dying. He is dying in a hospital from HIV/AIDS. Viewer's discretion is advised. Quinlan is very, very sick, and he's just landing up in the hospital, hooked up to IVs and tubes and stuff. And his family was gathering together, his sisters and brothers and all, that was, gathering together. And of course, Ralston had to be there. He had to be there, to see his uncle, say goodbyes to his uncle, because Quinlan was literally on his deathbed. And deep down inside, Ralston didn't really want him to go there to the hospital. And, Ralston also showed up there drunk. But, he pretended like he didn't drink anything because he know how to, try to hide. He knows how to hide away his drunkenness. Some people can't hide it away once they get drunk. Like, it'll obviously show they'll be disoriented and all that stuff like that. Ralston was neither one of that. He walked it casually to his uncle's hospital room. All of the family was already gathered around the bed. And, Quinlan wanted everybody to leave up out of there so it could be just him and Ralston talking one-on-one. As Quinlan, he was, bone thin, and I mean like really, really bone thin. Viewer's description is advised. Was bone thin, very pale skin. He was like really, really sick. Kind of had like a few like sores and stuff on him. Just very, very feeble and weak. He was just looking over at Quinlan, and Quinlan was just like looking like downward. He couldn't even look his uncle in the eye. And then, Ralston was looking downward. He just couldn't, look at his uncle in the eye. And Quinlan was looking up at him. Then he said, "You have grown up so much." Like, he put his hand on top of Ralston's hand. And once Ralston felt his uncle's hand, his uncle's cold hand on top of his, he had looked at his hand and then glanced it up at him. And Quinlan has said, "I wanted it to just be us here because I wanted it to come out with something." And Ralston said, "I'm listening." He had said, "I'm listening," in a calm tone of voice, while putting his eyes back down and not wanting to look at his uncle. And Quinlan said, "Well, I can't, tell you this if you're not looking at me back in the eyes." And once Quinlan had said that, that's when Ralston had glanced it up at him and said, "What do you have to say, Uncle Quinn?" And Quinlan said, "I'm sorry. I apologize from the very bottom of my heart of what I did to you. And I am so very grateful and glad that you did not tell my sister or my other siblings. I'm glad that you were strong enough to keep it to yourself." But Ralston was not that strong like what Quinlan was thinking. In the inside, he was just breaking apart. And the only way he felt like he could keep himself together is if he, drink. This young boy, 15, drinking, to cope with pain and trauma and stuff like that. From what his uncle had put on him. His uncle, who he is standing in front of right now. His uncle, who is dying in the hospital. In my opinion, do you think the uncle is still a villain right now for what he did to his nephew? I'll tell my thoughts at the end of the story. But, his uncle apologized to him. And, once he had apologized, Ralston just had like a tear rolling down out of his eye. And, he glanced it up at his uncle. And then Quinlan had asked him, like, "Do you accept my apology? Like, do you forgive me, before I go?" That's what his uncle was asking him. And Ralston just shook his head like that. And he kind of sniffled and shook his head. He had like one tear rolling out of his eye. And after that, Quinlan was gone. He was gone at the age of 32 years old. He was pretty young. But he was gone from HIV and AIDS. Took his last breath. He had got to apologize to his nephew before he passed away. But the damage was already done, if you know what I mean. Ralston, deep down in the inside, was already damaged, from what had happened to him. His uncle was gone. He still never told the other rest what had happened to him. But he ended up trying to tell his mother for the very first time. It was right at his uncle's funeral. He called her to the back of the church. And, she was standing to the back listening to him. She thought he was going to tell her something else. The mom of Ralston, Quinlan's sister, was not prepared to hear this out of her son. And he ended up coming out telling her that the whole time his Uncle Quinn had been, actually assaulting him. And once he came out with that, the mother had stood back and hauled off and hit her son. Viewer's discretion is advised. He hauled off and hit Ralston in the face, and Ralston just, glanced it up at her and then looked it down and then just put his hand down from his face. And she was like, "Don't you ever say that about your uncle. Do you hear me? This is not the right time or the place to say anything like that." Don't make a sick little joke about your uncle. Because I know my brother, and I know my brother would never do anything like that. Completely, the mother did not take none of the words that came out of Ralston's mouth. That put even more damage inside of him. So once he got that reaction out of his mother, he just thought in his mind like, well, forget it. I ain't going to tell anybody. I'll just, take it to the grave with myself. And that's exactly what he did. Ralston got into some dark things. And, he also had a crush on this girl at his school. This very beautiful girl. She was on the cheerleading team too. And very beautiful girl. I would say got long, straight, like dark brown hair. And she had kind of like a little bit lighter skin than Ralston himself. Ralston was like brown skin looking. But this Melinda girl, she was a little bit lighter shade than him. And she was about almost the same height as him. And she had long, dark brown hair. She was on the cheerleading team, kind of a popular girl at school. And she was very beautiful to Ralston. Like, he really liked this girl, Melinda Frazier. She was like his crush. But he was, and she spoke to him before. She saw him in the hallway, like, hey, how you doing? And he was like, hey. But in his mind, he was like, man, this girl makes butterflies come in my belly. He was in love with Melinda Frazier. And he shared his feelings about her to Seymour. And why did he do that? And Seymour, the reason why I said why did he do that is because once he got around Seymour and told how he felt about Melinda Frazier, Seymour said, well, why don't you go to her house then? Why don't you get her to invite you over to her house, and then when you two is alone, you can steal a kiss from her. Like forcibly get a kiss from her. And Ralston was not, drunk, or deliberated, around this time. He was, just thinking about it like, nah, I ain't gonna do nothing like that. I would like to go over her house, I would like to get to know her more and get close to her. And he said, well, why don't you do it then, man? But Seymour was talking about something way much darker, if you know what I mean. But once Ralston, it was one day when she really did invited Ralston over her house. And the reason why she invited Ralston over her house is because she had a lost doll. It was this doll that her mother been looking for. It was like a family doll that had got lost. I guess I would say a golden retriever. She was looking for it, and she needed help with finding it. None of her friends or anybody would help her find it. So she had went to Ralston because she ran across him before, thought that he'll be nice enough to help her find it after school. And she had got it out of her purse. Got it out of her book sack. It showed him the folded paper. It was a picture of her doll. And he saw it. The doll's name was up there. And the doll's name was Sally. It was a girl doll. And Ralston was looking at the paper like, okay, I'll help you find Sally. Cool. I'm cool with helping you find Sally. And that's what she did. And after school, with piping hot outside, the sun was just sitting on top of, them as they was looking through the woods and everywhere. Because Melinda knew that her dog usually would run around the woods area. And Ralston had ended up finding, Sally, the dog. And the dog had ran like, woof, woof. Trying to imitate the dog. And running up in Ralston's arms. Like, he was really friendly with Ralston. And she was like, wow. He was like, she really likes you. And Ralston like, yeah, I love dogs. Like, he was rubbing on the dog. The dog was like wagging his tail, had his tongue like panting out of his mouth, like, and they end up, she was like, thank you so much for helping me find my dog. I don't know how can I repay you. And they were like, oh, you don't have to pay me anything. Then she was like, how about you would like to come over my place? It's just going to be me and my dog there. My mother haven't gotten off of work yet. Which she shouldn't have done, because Ralston had thought once he had gotten there that she became his girlfriend in his mind, his messed up mind. When she invited him in there, he was looking all around. Melinda's house looked nice. Like, she had it was like this trailer house. Because I would say this story takes place somewhere in Indiana. She was living in this trailer house. And it was different pictures hanging up in the living room area. She had pictures and stuff, the awards and stuff that she got for cheerleading and stuff like that. She also used to like play like tennis and stuff like that. So she had like awards for that. She played tennis when she was a little younger, but she got into cheerleading at the age of 15 years old, well 14 years old, and 15 she was officially on the cheerleading team and all. Like she just was the girl who stayed. Just like I said, a popular girl, the girl who stays, a part of things in school. Everybody knows that girl like that, and Ralston really liked her. And when he got into her room, he was thinking like, yes, I finally made it close to her in his mind. But Melinda, she was nice enough. She had poured him something to drink in a cup, offered it to him. Ralston had drunk it and said, this is a nice place. And then she was like, thank you so much. And they had, got to know each other. And Melinda was telling about her father. She was saying that her father passed away and everything. And she said she's the only child. And said sometimes she get a little lonely. Sometimes she wishes that she had like a little sister or something like that. And she said, well, if I had a little sister, I would do her hair all the time. I would read her bedtime stories. Melinda was also a sweet girl in real life. May have been a popular girl, because usually they'll think that the popular people is mean. She was actually a really nice popular person at school. And Ralston like, yeah, I got me a little sister already. Her name is Nina. Like, he was telling about his little sister. She's like, oh, really? That's so sweet. Like, they just got to know each other. And then he had taught it to Melinda all the way up till, it got nighttime. That's how long Melinda talked it with Ralston. Ralston enjoyed talking with her. She's like, thank you so much for helping me find my dog. And she ended up giving him a hug. Ralston enjoyed that. His heart just melted when she wrapped his arms, when she had wrapped her arms around him and stuff, and just like, thank you so much for helping me find my dog. He's like, oh, you're welcome. Anytime you need some help with anything, just let me know. But the next time when she had invited him over to her house again, her little friends were over, her little cheerleading friends, and she introduced Ralston to them, like, Ralston, this is this person, this is that person. And they're like, oh my God, nice to meet you. Melinda told us about you and stuff like that. And Ralston like, yes, nice to meet you guys as well. And usually you would think a popular girl like Melinda would have a boyfriend on the side. No, she didn't. She stayed focused on cheerleading and, keeping her grades up at school and everything. She was focused on that. And but once Melinda's friends got away, Ralston had went into the bathroom, and Melinda's bathroom said, oh, well, I gotta, take a leak in your bathroom before I go. And then she was like, okay, take your time. Melinda had said, took your time. She went into her bedroom and, started getting out of her clothes. I believe she should have had waited till Ralston had left up out of her house. Why I said that, because while Ralston was in her bathroom, he was not taking no leak. He was, drinking, drinking. He had like some, alcohol on him. And Melinda had no idea that he was doing that in her bathroom. She had no idea that Ralston was a drinker. She did not know that he was that type of boy, because he just was a gentleman. He was nice enough to find her dog and everything, had a casual conversation with her. She enjoyed his company. So she was in her room changing out of her clothes, getting out of her shirt and everything, and was putting on the road because she was preparing to take a bath. She thought Ralston had left out. What Ralston did, he had stepped it out of the bathroom kind of a little bit, wobbly from drinking. But he kind of had fixed it up his, steps of how to walk to get to the front door. And when he got to the front door, he shut the front door. So Melinda heard the front door shut from her bedroom. And she thought like, oh, well, Ralston left out. I'm about to go take a shower. He did not leave out. He ended up busting into the room where she at. She was like, oh, Ralston, I thought you left out. She was like holding herself like this with the ring on. Ralston like wrapped his mouth there like, nah, I didn't, leave out. I just wanted to, to tell you goodbye before I leave out. And then she was like, oh, well, goodbye. I hope you make it home safely. But she still had herself covered up. And then, he was coming up closer to her. And the more he came up closer to her, the more Melinda was stepping back like, okay. And then like, can I get a hug? And then she'll like, a hug right now? I got on my robe. Like, I just want a regular old hug. Like, okay, you can get a hug, and you could go ahead and leave out now. Like, Melinda was like hoping that he'll leave out. Ralston did not leave out. He didn't say, well, that was a goodbye hug. Now I want a goodbye kiss. And then Melinda said, "Goodbye kiss. Ew, gross. I don't want to kiss you." And then, like, when she said ew, gross, and, like, kind of pushed him back a little bit, that's when Ralston had, started grabbing on her. And she was like, "No, get off of me. What are you doing? Like, I don't want to kiss you. I don't want to put my lips on your gross lips," like she was saying. And, like, "No, Ralston, no, Ralston, go. Like, go, leave out of my room." She was trying to get him up out of there. That's when Ralston had got aggressive and pushed her on the bed. And, was was just swearing at her and yelling at her. Melinda was scared. She was screaming out like, "No, somebody help me." Yeah, viewer's discretion is advised. Let's just say he assaulted Melinda. The same thing that happened to him with his uncle, it happened to Melinda by him. Like I said, he became a villain. And, Melinda tried her best to fight him off, scratching at him and everything. It didn't work. And then, after it all had happened, went on like an hour. After it all had happened, Ralston had then put something sharp up, like, to her, like, right there, threatened, to take her life or anything like that. And then, before leaving out of the room, he gave her a kiss on the cheek. Like I said, his mind was, messed up from what he had, did when he was younger. He became the villain. He was the victim, and he grew up to become the villain. He hurted an innocent person like Melinda. And, they ain't the first girl he had done it to. He ended up developing, like, a short relationship with this other girl. Her name was Marianne. But he ended up luring Marianne off to, the woods area. And, him and Marianne got close. Like, he wanted it to, like, do, like, a campfire in the woods area and everything. And then he had kissed her, like, one time on the cheek. But then he wanted it on the lips. Marianne pushed him away, like, "No, I'm not ready to do that." But, he had his way with her. And, when he had his way with her, Marianne told it on him. See, Melinda, she did not come out to her mother right then and there that this boy, who she knows very well, had did that to her. She held it in, just like he did. But she did not hold it in for long. She did ended up telling her mother about it. Marianne told her father. Her father was out to to take this boy out that did that to his daughter. Like, she told her mother and her father about it, her family about it. They was out looking for Ralston. I ain't gonna say thankfully, but they did not find him. And you better be glad they did not find him. They did not find him. But Melinda's mother, on the other hand, her name was Tina Frazier. Tina was infuriated. Tina was just angry. She was angry that he'll do, but she like showed a calm face, but deep down inside, she was infuriated in the inside. And she, Melinda, she also took a picture with Ralston before. So she had a picture of Ralston. She showed it to her mother. Like, "This is the boy, that did that to me." Like, she told her mother about it. And Tina had on her mind that she had to do what she had to do to protect her daughter. She took the law in her own hands, I guess that's what you call it. She took the law in her own hands. Tina had, like, this big old shotgun. Went to, like, the back of her house when her daughter was sleeping in bed. And she went to the back of the house, like in this garage area, and got this shotgun off of the wall. And she went hunting. She had hunted Ralston down, but Ralston really did not want to hide. He felt like that he was sick, mentally sick. He felt, even though he was just 15 years old, he knew that he was mentally sick. And he felt like he knew that soon that somebody was going to end up finding him, and that he just can't hide any more longer. He got tired of hiding too. Did ended up finding him. She ended up finding him with the shotgun in her hand, and he was sitting in the woods area, same area where him and Marianne was sitting at. He was sitting in the woods area to himself, just drinking and was just talking to himself. And Tina had said, "Get up and turn around." She said it like that, like ch-ch. And Ralston got up from where he was, turned it around, calmly. And then like, "Hello, ma'am." And then she said, "You hurt my daughter, didn't you?" And then Ralston said, "Yes, I did." He told her the truth. He didn't lie. He didn't get scared like, oh, no, I didn't do that to your daughter. No. He didn't get scared. He told her straight up like, yeah, I heard it, your daughter. And then she said, well, I'm going to have to take you out of your misery. Viewer's discretion is advised. Tina just told him straight up, I'm going to have to do what I have to do. She knew the consequences behind doing what she had to do with this little boy. She knew she probably would have to get jail time or prison time or whatever after doing what she had to do with this little boy. And Ralston, he was fine with it. He was like, okay, well, can I finish up this bottle first? And then she was like, going right ahead. And, after Ralston finished up his last drink, she told him to, march someplace else. Further further from the spot that he was already at. She wanted him to march somewhere further. And then she made him get on his knees. And then, she said, do you have any last prayers to say or any last words to say or anything? Just like, like she did like a personal execution for him. Viewer's discretion is advised. And Roster like, no last words, no prayers, no nothing. Roster said that. And that's when Tina took her shotgun and she did what she had to do to Roster. He was only 15 years old. And yes, she turned herself in, did prison, got thrown into prison. 10 years. 10 years of her life gone for taking a 15-year-old boy's life. And, the mother and the daddy, the mother of Ralston and the rest of Ralston's family, they found out what happened to him. His body was found. And the mother, she was devastated. She lost her son. She not only lost her brother, but she lost her son. But he ended up writing in a journal about what his uncle had did and how it was eating him up inside and how he felt better when he took in, a drink or two, and the things that he did to the two girls, Marianne and Melinda. Hurted both of those girls like that. And then he was saying in his journal that he was sorry to both of those girls and that he forgives his uncle and everybody, and he forgives her. He forgives his mother for not believing him. That's what he wrote in his journal. So he already had some last words, but he didn't just say it in front of Tina. He had it already written down in a notebook, this red notebook that he had put up that he just wrote to himself. So yeah, viewer's discretion is advised. And this is the end of the story called Flames of Fire. Pretty dark, sad. And all I can say is the uncle still a victim? Is the uncle a villain? His Uncle Quinlan? Yes, he is. Stuff like that happened to people in real life. I don't condone it. It's sad. My heart goes out to people who have gone through something like that. And and you just hear about horrible stuff like that on the news as well. Stuff like that, is very, very serious, to discuss or talk about or even make a story about. It's not as easy as what people think it is. And, sometimes I have to do pauses to, recount what the story is about and everything. Some of my stories, majority of my stories, it would be about family issues, trauma, abuse, healing, pain. I just want to get as realistic as I can. Realistic fiction is the type of stories that I'll write about or tell about. But I also share something that happened on the news. And I hope you like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't. If you're new here, welcome to my channel, Willa Candy's channel. So I'm so happy to have you come by here. And hope you all have a great day. I hope you all drive safely out there, love one another, treat everyone with respect, and just simply be safe out there. And if God's will, there'll be more videos coming up, more Bible reading videos. Just trying to encourage somebody out there, whoever needs to hear it, because at the end of the day, we all need God. I know I still need the Lord. And I hope you like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Goodbye. And you can check out my other videos that I did. I did a rag squeezer video with pine saw. And I also I reused the pine saw. I mopped the floor with it. And I also did a banana pudding video. A banana pudding that I had made. It was like a honey banana type of pudding that I had made myself whipped it cream on top. You can check it out on the short. And goodbye and have a great day.